Howdy, fellow vine trippers. I wanted to take just a moment before the show starts to let you know about a great website called Texas Wine Lover. They can be found at txwinelover.com. And they have a comprehensive website that can become your go-to site for information on Texas wines, winemakers, and the wineries that can be found in this state. They even have a phone app that you can download, and that will help you plan your route to create your own wine trip. So make sure and check them out at txwinelover.com. Welcome to Texas Under Vine, an exploratory podcast to scout out the best that Texas wine country has to offer. I'm your wine guide, Scott, and I'm here to lead you on an auditory expedition to the vineyards and wineries across the great Lone Star State. Each episode will cover a different vineyard, winery, or wine-related business operating in Texas. You'll hear interviews, descriptions, and details about each location that will excite you to visit and experience them for yourself. Ready to plan a wine tour? Use these episodes to choose the most interesting spots for you and your friends to check out. Most of all, enjoy hearing about the rapidly growing wine industry in the state and what makes our wines and wineries the best. Howdy, fellow vine tripper. So welcome to bonus episode 3 for Texas Under Vine. I wanted to take some time to familiarize you with another extraordinary resource that's available for those wanting to travel to many of the great wineries, especially those in the Hill Country area, and taste some wines at some of those places you may have heard about on this podcast. So Texas Hill Country Wineries is a combined marketing group that contributes several things to the Texas wine industry, but one of those is what are called passport events. Now, I wanted to get this out today because October is just a few days away and we'll be celebrating Texas Wine Month all over the state. And Texas Hill Country Wineries has a passport event starting on the 1st of October and lasting all the way through the 31st. Now, a few things about Texas Hill Country Wineries. It was actually started by about 8 wineries in the Hill Country back in 1999. It all began with a potluck dinner hosted by Gary Gilstrap at Texas Hills Vineyard in Johnson City. You can hear more of Texas Hills' story in episode 2 of this podcast, where Gary told me some of the story of actually starting up this very organization. Their goal is to combine their marketing efforts in a spirit of cooperation and encouraging more wine tourism to the Hill Country AVA and area. Next year is actually their 25th anniversary of the organization, and it has grown to 64 different member wineries in the Hill Country area. So you're going to hear more about the passport events in a little bit in the interview, but these are great ways to visit many of those member wineries and get tastings at each one of them. In addition to these passport events, they also host the Texas Hill Country Wine Symposium. They have winemaker dinners, roadshow events where they go to other areas of the state, with one of the most recent of those being actually in Austin at the new Q2 soccer stadium here. They even use the proceeds from those events to provide scholarships to students going into the wine industry. So you can find a listing as well as an interactive, searchable, and filterable map of all 64 of the participating members on the THCW website, which is www.texashillcountrywineries.org. Now, one of the big events that they do that I mentioned a moment ago are the various passport events. So October every year is officially Texas Wine Month. So they offer a passport that you can buy that gives you free tastings at many of the member wineries for much less than it would cost to visit and pay for the tastings yourself. It even provides extra discounts at the wineries, and it is good all month long. So based on the way the passport works, you can go to up to 4 different wineries each day for every day of the month of October. More about the passport program again in that interview. I don't want to spill all the beans right now, but look for suggested wine tours and stops on my social media in October, where I'm going to be highlighting some of the participating wineries that are part of the Texas Wine Month Passport that have also been featured on this podcast. It's your chance to visit in person many of those great wine destinations that you've heard about from me here. So I've created actually 4 different wine trails that I'm going to release on a page where I suggest different wineries that you can go see that are part of the wine trail, and maybe listen to those episodes on your way visiting those particular wineries. There are actually 12 of the participating wineries that I've done podcasts for. So I've got 4 different wine trails divided up to 3 wineries kind of in close proximity, where if you wanted to go check out some of the very places you've heard about here, you can just follow those wine trails. Those will be posted on my website at texasundervine.com. I'm also going to post them on my social media throughout October as well. So I recently had the chance to sit down with the executive director of the Texas Hill Country Wineries, January Wiese. I wanted to give a quick shout out first and thank you to Dukeman Family Winery for hosting us and giving us a little space for January and I to sit down and visit for this podcast. But let's hear a little bit about Texas Hill Country Wineries and this cool Texas passport for Texas Wine Month from her. Okay, so I'm here with January Wiese from Texas Hill Country Wineries. Thank you for joining me today. So tell me a little bit about yourself. What got you into the wine industry?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in the wine industry just outside of Paso Robles, California in Templeton. My family had a vineyard and winery that I grew up on. Went to school, came back, got to manage that for a while. And then I married my husband, Corey, who's from Texas. And family business is hard. And so we decided to try things on our own. And he said, let's move back to Texas. And I told him, well, all I know is wine, so we have to find wine. And so we actually were at Rodeo Houston and saw the wine competition, and I was like, oh yeah, I can totally do this. It'll be great. And so when we first moved back here, I worked for Flat Creek Estate Winery and kind of got my foot in the door in Texas wine. And then a couple of years into it, Texas Hill Country Wineries was looking for an event coordinator. So I got hired to do that part-time, and then eventually got to take over as executive director. About 12 years ago.
So what's the history about Texas Hill Country Wineries? How did it get started and what's its mission?
Yeah, so Texas Hill Country Wineries was started by about 8 wineries in February of 1999. They got together and decided they wanted to increase visitorship to their wineries and their tasting rooms, and decided to put on a passport or a trail event. That's what they called them originally, was a trail. And so their first one that they planned was the Wine and Wildflower Trail in April. And in between February and the launch of that event in April, they had 8 more wineries join the association. And so they launched with about 16 wineries for that trail event. And it was so successful that they planned, what was next? The Harvest Wine Trail, and then Texas Wine Month Trail, and then Christmas Trail, and then the following year, they launched the Wine Lovers Trail. So they eventually had 5 trails all together. We have since grown to, next year we'll celebrate the 25th anniversary of the association, and we've grown to 64 member locations. We also have grower members and associate members, and then we do more than the consumer events now. We do educational events for industry and networking events as well. Cool.
Because I know my second episode I did was was at Texas Hills with Gary Gilstrap. And he was talking about how he had it was right around that time, 99, they had a big potluck there with invited several of the other wineries in the area at the time to try to figure out how can we combine our marketing. Was that?
Yes. So Gary and Kathy Gilstrap were the driving force behind Texas Hill Country Wineries. They basically started this association, and this was before me. So a lot of this I hear, history and secondhand was, yes, they had a potluck. They invited all of these wineries, got together, decided to do this event and form this association. And then for the longest time, they designed and created and hosted the website and did everything with that. They sold the tickets, I think, through Texas Hills, and then hand mailed all of the tickets to people. Like when the event first started, they had the 1-800 number connected to Texas Hills Vineyard. So they ran everything out of their shop to get this association up and running.
I can see two phones right next to each other. Which one do I pick up? Wait, which one am I answering? Is this Texas Hills? Is it? Well, it's funny because I got to interview Gary on episode 2 of my podcast, and he tells a little bit about some of that story of inviting all those wineries to his place for that. Kind of funny, back at that time, 8 wineries, and now how it's expanded.
Yeah.
It's crazy. 64. That's awesome. Well, real quickly, what about those wineries that are members right now? How often does that change? Or does that come and go? I mean, I'm sure, God forbid, it happens sometimes, but sometimes wineries close for different reasons, or seems like now you have new ones springing up every other day, especially in the Hill Country, like wildflowers shooting up. How often does that change? So wineries come and go.
Yeah, so it changes yearly. Like I said, it was 8 and then 16. And then the numbers that I've seen was like the next year it was 21 and then it was 24. And then when I joined the association, it was 27. And then the next year we were at like 32 and then just moved up, over the years. We have lost a number of members due to them closing their business, selling off the property completely and, the winery closing, or selling to, somebody else who was going to take over the winery and just didn't feel like this was a fit for them. So we always gain more members each year, though, than we lose. We've only, we've lost maybe about 8 members total over the years. I think there are 3 of the original members, only 3 that are no longer in business. So it's a pretty good number.
So you get some of those mainstay people that have been there the whole time.
Yeah.
That's really cool. What would you say is your goal or objective for Texas Hill Country Wineries, besides just the trails and things like that? I know you mentioned, you kind of hit on a few of the different things you do, but just as a perspective, what does Texas Hill Country Wineries do in the community?
Yeah, so we are a nonprofit association run by our members. And so our number one goal is to promote and market our member wineries and their tasting rooms and their Texas wines. Secondarily, we support the Texas wine industry as a whole. And then community-wise, we have our scholarship fund trying to increase the number of younger kids, I guess you could say, getting into the industry and just having, that support, not only financial support, but that networking support as well. And just overall education for both the industry and the consumer about Texas wines and where we are and where we're going.
Yeah, I think it's important for that young blood. I think there's the standard paradigm is typically somebody retires and then that becomes their retirement career. So getting those younger people in, and I'm seeing a lot of those places really starting to kick up in especially just the Hill Country, but all over Texas, even younger people getting involved and starting this as a full-time career rather than as a second career.
Yeah. A handful of years ago, our grower committee was looking at how we, there wasn't a lot of labor, to pull from it, and in both the winery and the vineyard side. And so their goal was, how do we get new people and these kids interested in the industry? And so with the help of Justin Shiner, actually Dan McLaughlin took over and really, pushed this with Justin, created the TEA courses so that those kids can take those viticulture courses in high school and then graduate with some knowledge of being able to go to work in a vineyard and, stay around here and really get into the industry. And so that started there. And then we took that another step and then, like I noted, created the scholarship fund and really just trying to get those kids interested at an early age. And not just the kids who are family members of, industry folks and stuff, just kind of letting them know that there are more possibilities in this industry. Start with the vineyard, the winery, marketing, graphic design, all kinds of stuff that they can do within the industry and be involved.
Is it viticulture class all about grapevines?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, Mason was the first one to adopt it. Mason High School. Like I said, Dan was a huge advocate of this program and really pushed it. And so Mason took it on first and then Fredericksburg next. But those are the only 2 that I know of for sure in the state that have it. But it's available to all high schools.
Yeah. Does it help having the Texas Tech extension there in Fredericksburg for them to be able to connect with and all that as well? I would think that would be a great resource for those high school classic.
Yeah, I think it is. So Justin's actually with A&M, and so they have the viticulture and fruit lab or fruit and viticulture lab there in Fredericksburg. And so there really is that connection. Justin doesn't work at the lab there, but there really is that connection with the university and, being able to help with those resources to get for the schools. We just don't have that, all over them.
I didn't realize that A&M had an extension there in Fredericksburg as well.
Yeah, it's the Texas A&M Fruit and Viticulture Lab.
I know that A&M is a huge player, along with Tech, in that industry, but I didn't realize they had. I'd seen the one as I drive into Fredericksburg, you'd see the big Texas Tech logo. Yep. So I knew they had the extension there. I didn't realize A&M did too.
That lab is over by the airport. It's really
down
small.
16 that way? Okay.
Yeah, it's really small. It's really research. It's a research lab, and they do more than grapes. They do peaches and all kinds of stuff.
All right. Well, back to Texas Hill Country Wineries. So I saw on the website you've got a board of directors that kind of oversees that. Does that board rotate? How does that change? That board change over time?
Yeah. So we have 7 members on our board. We do vote in new members every year. In the past, it was a full brand new set of seven board members. And a handful of years ago, we changed that in their 2-year terms now. And so every year we vote in a new vice president who will be that for a year, and then they take over as president. Our outgoing president then has the option to move on as a member at large. And then every other year we either vote in a new secretary or a new treasurer. Those are staggered. And then we always vote in a new member at large because we have 2 of those positions besides the past president one. And so those stagger as well. So we typically have 3 new board members every year.
Okay. And I noticed that the current president is John from Bento. Yep. He was my 3rd episode. So a little shout out to John there.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
He is so supportive and motivated to, like, every time we say we have a new idea or we're going to ask for something, he's like, I'll do it. But that's our job, John. You just tell us what to do. Like, he's really excited about all of the things that we can do as an association.
Well, I mean, his winery in and of itself is innovative in the fact that it's a warehouse-style winery located in the heart of Cedar Park, city of Austin.
Right.
So I can easily see, of course, after interviewing John, knowing he's very innovative and got lots of ideas and can follow through, and the energy to follow through on those ideas.
The energy, lots.
So what about the list of wineries that are members? Is there a listing of the wineries for people to be able to see who are members and things like that?
Yeah, so we do have 64 members. We have 2 different membership levels in the association. You can be a full winery member, which means you are a full production winery within the Hill Country AVA, and you have a tasting room here. They can both be on the same site, like Grape Creek or Bent Oak or High Meadow, or they can be where the winery is maybe just out of town, and then the tasting room is there on 290, like Texas Heritage Vineyards. And then the second level we have is an affiliate member, where it's a full production winery within the state of Texas, like Bingham and Farmhouse. And then you have your tasting room location or a second tasting room location here in the Hill Country, or that your wines are being made, 100% of your wines are being made in Texas by a Texas winery, and then your tasting room is on 290, like Cicada Cellars. So all of our member wineries can be found on the website. There are 2 options. One, we do have a winery list where you can just see everybody alphabetical. And right now it's just kind of basic information, but we're working on upgrading that page to include pictures of the winery, a brief description, kind of give you more of a personal feel what each winery is about. So, we're that gateway to people visiting. And so when you look at it and you just see a logo and basic information, you're like, oh, they all look the same. So we want to bring that to life for you and make sure that you can look at that and say, yeah, that's appealing. That's where I want to go. And then the other option is our map, which we've actually just redone our website. It just launched a month ago. So it's pretty great. We have an interactive map, and you can see all of the wineries on there, all together. You can plug in your location and find out what's closest to you, or you can filter by a number of options. Dogs allowed, children allowed, picnic areas, restaurants, light fare, all kinds of stuff. And then you can also filter by the events that we're having, like the passport events that we're having. You could also filter by varietal. So if you know that you are looking for Tanat, you can filter by Tanat and see what wineries have Tanat and make a list and go visit all of them.
Okay, well, we talked a little bit about events. You mentioned events. So what type of events do you hold?
Yeah, so on the consumer side, we hold 4 passport events a year. We do the Wine Lovers Celebration, Wine and Wildflower Journey, Texas Wine Month Passport, and the Christmas Wine Affair. We also host winemaker dinners throughout the Hill Country. We do try to do those quarterly, different set of wineries at each one. We just hosted one earlier this month, and then our next one is in December. And then we do the road show events that we brought back from 15 years ago. We did them. We brought those back last year where we take the wineries to different cities and host tasting events there.
Was that the one that was at Q2?
Yeah.
And there seemed like there was one in Houston as well.
Yeah, so we started last year in November in Houston, and then we did Q2 here in Austin in April. And then we're going to Fort Worth this November. And then next year we'll do Houston and San Antonio. And there are only 2 of us that work at the association. And so our hope was to do 4 a year, do them quarterly. But the thing with quarterly here is that we can't do anything over the summer because everybody's so busy. So we have to cram them into the first part of the year and the last part of the year. And it just was too much. So we decided to just do 2 a year and then just rotate those.
So tell me, what is significant about October in Texas?
Yeah, so October is Texas Wine Month. It was the idea in 1999 from Commissioner Combs, and she brought that to the TDA and decided they wanted to promote Texas wines, and this would be a great month because it was after harvest, but hopefully enough after harvest that, the wineries had settled down and they could do, more events and celebrate it right. And so they brought the idea to the governor, and Governor Bush signed the proclamation in 1999 and created Texas Wine Month. The entire state celebrates it. Of course, we do Texas Wine Month Passport. There is another trail event, I think, in North Texas. There are winemaker dinners and festivals. October is the month to celebrate Texas wine, and individual wineries do events. You could find something every single day, I think, in October, something different to celebrate Texas wine, which is pretty great.
Well, tell me a little bit about this passport then. What does that entail? What does that give somebody? What can they do with it?
Yeah, so Texas Wine Month Passport is the entire month, October 1st through 31st. We have a couples ticket, which is $120, and then an individual ticket that is $85. And you can use that ticket every single day of the month. I tell people, if you don't have a job, you might as well be out there every day, right? You get to visit 4 wineries a day, and you get complimentary tastings at each winery. And then you get a 15% discount on 3-bottle purchases at each winery. You can visit each winery once during the month. When you purchase your ticket, you get a barcode that you can, take a screenshot on your phone. You can print it out if you want to, or you can just download to your Apple Wallet. And then when you visit the wineries, you just show that and they scan it and they know you're there for the passport event.
So they can go to these tastings. It's $120 for a couple, and how much was it for an individual?
$85 for an individual.
So with a standard tasting typically running around, $15 to $30 at a lot of these wineries, you go to 2, maybe 3 wineries, and now it's paid for, but you can still go all month long.
Right.
So that's an incredible value for what you're going to get at these places, plus the discounts.
It is. Yeah. The second you hit your 3rd or 4th winery, you paid for your passport.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, the discount, the value, we probably need to go research and ask our member wineries again. When we did the original launch of this style of the passport, the limited to 4 a day, we asked the wineries what their tasting fees were, and we came out with the average of $15. But honestly, that was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And so I think that has gone up quite a bit. And so that really makes the value of this passport worth it.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of anybody who visited every one of them in 1 month, that they got their crown, that they hit all of them? Yes,
we have a couple of customers who do almost all of the trails, and then every time that they go, they try to hit every winery. Beth Ann Black, I'm going to call her out, and her husband have done that, and I know that they took a picture and sent it to us at their last winery that they visited with a little sign. And I think that they sent us the picture of their first one, and and Kate has shared that on social media. They're definitely our number one consumers and wine lovers.
That would be a fun little scrapbook to take a picture at every one of them as you go through and have a whole little book of as you go through all 64.
I bet she has it.
Yeah. All right. Well, so let's say a listener is getting excited. So here we are. The wine month has started. The passport is active. How do they buy one? If they think, oh, I got to get one of those before time runs out.
Yep. So we actually limit the tickets. There are only 800 tickets available for Texas Wine Month. By the time we launch, we should be about 3/4 of the way sold out. So you can visit texashillcountrywineries.org to purchase your ticket. And then up in the top navigation bar, you just drop down events, and right there at the top is going to be Texas Wine Month.
Okay. And then they can go through the process to buy it online.
Yeah.
How does it work from there? How do they get their tickets?
So it's emailed to them immediately. You'll get a confirmation receipt with the ticket barcode that, like I said, all you have to do is you can print that out if you want. You can screenshot it to your phone, download it to your Apple Wallet, however you want.
And then when they go to a specific winery, how do they just show that on their phone or their printout, and that's what gets them the free tasting?
Yep, either way that you want, printout or on your phone, and the wineries will scan it with their phone or their iPad or whatever they have available to do that, and then it'll just pop right up that you are a guest to get your tastings.
Can they just walk in on their own schedule to different places, or do they need reservations?
So you will need reservations at a number of our wineries. Post-COVID, reservations came out and are a big thing at wineries, and we used to have a lot of restrictions on the passport per the wineries. What worked best for them. You can only taste on weekdays, group limits, different things like that. And that was a little confusing to us, wineries, and our guests. And so we decided to do away with those. And wineries have just taken their reservation systems and added that to our information list. So when you're on the website to purchase your tickets, there is a printable, downloadable map and list of the member wineries. That list links either their website reservations, or if you have to email, or if you have to call. And so you can use that. And then that's also emailed to you when you purchase your ticket. And then we also send about weekly emails, because we do have wineries adding throughout ticket sales to the event. So we want to make sure that everybody gets that updated list as much as possible. So you'll get that map, a number of times. But recommendation is reservations at a majority of them, but that is listed on that list.
And then are the tickets, like, let's say I have a group of wine friends and we like to go out together, or family or something like that. Are the tickets transferable? Like, can I buy a whole bunch of them and then give them to my friends to use, or does each individual person need to buy their own?
Yeah, no, they're absolutely transferable. You can buy one and, say one weekend you want to take your wife and you guys go. And then the next weekend you want to take your son or your daughter, you can go. You just can't visit that same winery that you visited, the weekend before and use it there. So that they're transferable that way. And then, yes, you can purchase a couple of them. You can give them as gifts. You can either just give that to them as is, or you can do that transfer officially. Once you purchase those tickets, it gives you the option to transfer into somebody else's name.
And those would be great options, I would think, for gifts for friends and relatives and things like that you want, that love wine.
Yeah.
To be able to, because since Texas Wine Month, like you said, isn't the only one. There's 4 of these, did you say, per year? So you could get those events as gifts for other people throughout the year as well.
Yeah, they make great gifts for a number of things. You have people coming into town to visit. And like we mentioned earlier, if you visit 3 or 4 wineries and during that time, it pays for itself. So even if you just have, guests coming for the weekend, it's a really great option for a gift, or just something for you guys to do. They make great housewarming gifts, I think, for people moving to the area, looking to explore Texas wines. Or, of course, Christmas gifts. When we launch Christmas Wine Affair, they're perfect for wine lovers, for, your date or your spouse or whatever it may be.
So instead of the traditional housewarming gift of, let me bring you a bottle of wine that I don't even know if you're going to like, and it may not even be that great, how about this, where you can then go sample and find the wines that you like best? I think that's great. Yeah, and my wife, she's kind of this stage where she says, you know what, I don't really want material gifts. I would rather have experiences. Right. if you're going to buy me something, buy me an experience that we can go do together, things like this. So to me, that's like a perfect type of gift. Okay, so when they go to the wineries, is the tasting like, is it because it's through the Passport event? Is it a special kind of thing? Like, how long should they plan on doing a tasting at each winery?
Yeah, so the tasting at each winery is slightly different. Some wineries will do their standard tasting. Some wineries will do a special tasting for Passport, ticket holders. But we say plan about an hour at the winery. When we took this down to 4, it used to be unlimited, right? But they only gave 1 to 3 tastes of wine. When we took this down to 4, it was for 2 reasons. One, because they're giving full complimentary tastings, and at some wineries that can be 5 to 6 wines or whatever that is. And so we wanted to make sure we limit that for responsibility wise. But the other one was that we wanted to slow people down, and we want you to take your time at the winery. So we want you to do your tasting, enjoy your time with your tasting associate, learn more about the winery and the wines, and then, not feel rushed to get out there to have to cram in so many per day or whatever it is. Take your time, have a glass of wine on the patio or the porch or whatever it may be. So we say about an hour, and then of course give yourself 15 minutes to a half an hour travel time. And then of course, always bake in time for lunch.
Yeah, because wineries are not just about the wine, it's the whole experience. So having that extra time just to, even after your tasting is done, to hang out and enjoy the scenery, the area. All wineries are slightly different.
Exactly.
In what they offer. Okay, so when they go to the vineyards and the wineries, I know a lot of them offer tours, things like that. Is any of that included in the Passport?
No, not necessarily. Those are usually separate. All winery events are separate. Some offer self-guided tours, so of course you can do that while you're there. And then others in their reservation system will tell you if, there's a tour available or not, so you can always book those.
And then for moving from place to place, driving, or are there tour companies that participate that maybe take people between the participating wineries? Or
well, the Texas Wine Month, all of our Passport events are self-guided events. So you plan your own trip, start and end when you want, drive your own vehicle. We always recommend a designated driver or a tour company. There are tons of tour companies across the Hill Country, varying, from a big bus with a bunch of people, party bus, kind of fun. And that does sometimes limit the wineries that you can visit because a number of the wineries don't accept buses. But then there's also, the limos and the town cars, that kind of a feel. Or there's even other tour companies that are really focused on education and have, that background and connection with the member wineries where you'll get a little bit more on that education side and in-depth, dive into the wineries and the wines. So it depends on what fits for you.
So is there any kind of printed material, like a brochure or anything that talks about the Passport? And if so, how could they get something like that?
Yeah, so we do a map and brochure every year. We have that available at all of our member wineries and then all of our advertisers. They're available at all of the Travel Information Centers, and then they're available at a number of lodging locations across the state, actually, and CVBs and chambers across the state. If you don't find one and don't pick one up somewhere, you can always email us through the website and we'll mail one to you directly.
So you mentioned earlier about your scholarship program. So for young people, what does that look like? Tell me a little bit about that program.
Yeah, so we actually fund our scholarship program through mostly the Passport events. $5 from each Passport ticket sale goes into the scholarship fund. So that kicks off the funds that we have each year. We also, all of our winemaker dinners or, some of our other fundraising events, all of the net proceeds from that go into the scholarship fund. And then we also have industry members and events like the Texas Wine Jam that donate directly to the scholarship fund. And that application process opens at the end of the school year typically. And for me, that's April, May. That's when my kids are into the school year. And we know that a lot of kids do, some of that scholarship application over the summer when they're not in school. But then we leave that open until November 1st so that we hit the kids when they get back in school if they missed it. It is open to high school and college students. The application is pretty simple, all your basic information, and then we ask you to tell us, about your Texas wine journey, what your goals are, where you've been, where you've worked. We do ask you to submit your resume because we find a lot of our students, the college students, have worked at wineries across the state. And then we determine, our community outreach committee grabs those applications and they determine how many kids we're going to award based on how much is in the scholarship fund. And then it varies. We do scholarships for the certification courses through Tech. We have done scholarships for WSET students. And then, of course, we have viticulture and enology students. And then we've awarded some scholarships to hospitality students from Conrad Hilton. And anybody who is in an associated degree or certificate program with the wine industry that is planning on coming back to Texas wine.
And I love that idea that not only is that passport such an incredible bargain for what you're paying, but to know that a part of every one of those tickets that you buy goes back to helping young winemakers who are going to be the future of the wine industry. Yeah. You're just making the wine industry better and better with each one of those passports you buy.
That's true. Yeah.
That's cool. All right. Well, last other event that I wanted to talk about is the Texas Hill Country Wine Symposium, which I know y'all put on every year. So tell me a little bit about what that event is about.
Yeah. So in 2024, we'll be celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Texas Hill Country Wine Symposium. We started at Hill Country University Center. We're supposed to only have like 120 people. And I think by the end of it all, we had like 150, which isn't a huge number. But when you're looking at that space, it's a lot of people. And so we instantly outgrew that space and moved to Horseshoe Bay Resort. The symposium came around because about 10 years ago, we were approached to help do some fundraising for the Fruit and Viticulture Lab, the A&M Fruit and Viticulture Lab in Fredericksburg. And so we wanted to host some dinners and for consumers, and all of the proceeds would go to A&M. And then in turn, we saw that there was a lack of education, just, daily education here in the Hill Country. And so for our growers. And so we did some grower field days. And after that was over, we raised the funds for A&M. We decided to continue with those and turn it into the symposium, where we have grower and vineyard track sessions, we have winery sessions, we have business sessions, which kind of include, business and then overall marketing and promotion kind of all rolled into one, as well as staff education sessions. And so it was a 2-day conference and has now turned into a 3-day conference, which is great. We kick off on Sunday night with a winemaker dinner for our board members. And so we feature a wine from each of our board members, and that is open to all Texas wine lovers, industry members, and those that information and tickets should hopefully be up by October 1st. And then on Monday, we actually dedicate that to new grower and winery sessions. And so we have some speakers coming to talk about getting into the wine industry, but we do have a number of established wineries and growers that attend, and they have really enjoyed that because it kind of reminds them of the things that they forgot when they started, the things that they maybe should be doing or did do, and
refresher course.
Exactly. And then also on that day, we host the Texas Wine Ambassador Certification course. Kelsey Kramer from William Chris Wine Company does that for us. And I actually just took that course a couple months ago, and it was the first wine certification that I've ever done in my life. And it is awesome. You learn a lot about, being in the industry for so long. I learned a lot about things that I didn't know, from the grower side and the wine side, which was really awesome. But if you are in the industry and in any capacity and want to learn more about Texas wine, or just kind of have that under your belt to say, yes, I'm a Texas Wine Ambassador, that's a great course to take. So we do that on Monday. And then Monday evening, we do the scholarship awards and presentation for all of those kids that are recipients and celebrate them. And then starting Tuesday morning, we do the vineyard and winery courses and the business courses throughout the next 2 days. We have 4 keynote speakers this year, kind of in some different categories, which will be really interesting. And, usually you have one keynote speaker, but we have so many different aspects to this industry. We thought that it was important to kind of break that up. So we have, somebody talking about sustainability in the vineyard, somebody talking about their association that they, started and how they attribute to sustainability, and then, some different focuses like that. And Tuesday evening, we have the wine reception, which is super fun. All of the attendees bring a bottle of wine to share, and it's structured, but it's pretty casual. Everybody sets their wines out and enjoys them and tastes them and gets to experience, different industry members' wines, because you don't get out and visit these other tasting rooms and taste these wines and see what's going on, with your neighbors, unless you're at an event like this. And so we try to open that up and make that an experience for everyone.
And I love how it fosters that sense of cooperation rather than competition.
Yep.
Because we're all in this together.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Supporting the Texas wine industry.
Yeah.
So is there anything else about Texas Hill Country Wineries, things that y'all do, anything that you want to talk about, highlight, or anything that I missed?
Yeah, so we do have 2 events coming up, 2 other events coming up. Of course, there's Texas Wine with Passport in October, and then November 6th, we are hosting the Fort Worth Roadshow up at Tannehill's Tavern and Music Hall in Fort Worth. We'll be opening up tickets to that. Actually, they are open. Sorry. We are bringing 24 wineries up to Fort Worth, and we'll have a walk-around tasting of those wineries. And hopefully, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you can join us for that. And then on December 3rd, we have one of our winemaker dinners at Hill and Vine in Fredericksburg, where we'll be featuring 6 different wineries. And the chef there is putting together the menu and pairing them with the different wines, and those tickets will be available soon as well. And all of the proceeds from the winemakers dinners also go to the scholarship fund.
And I presume there's on your website an events calendar where they can go find all that and buy those tickets and everything.
Yes. So the TexasHillCountryWineries.org, up at the top, there's an events button in the navigation bar. And of course, you'll see all of the passports listed out. And then there are industry events, which include the symposium and tasting room managers, luncheons, different things that we do for the industry. But then you'll see all events hosted by THCW, which includes the dinner, the road show, and some other things that we do. All right, so this Texas Passport coming up is something that you don't want to miss. Make sure that you're going to their website and get your tickets now. Like she said, they're limited. They only have a certain amount, and you don't want to miss out on that. Plus, some of the other events that they have going on, like she mentioned November 6th, they're going to take their roadshow up to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So for those of you that are my Metroplex listeners, you could go up and check out. There'll be 24 different Hill Country wineries represented. It's going to be at Tannehill's Tavern and Music Hall. So make sure to go check that out. Again, the information's on their website. And on December 3rd, they're hosting a winemaker dinner at Hill and Vine in Fredericksburg. And they'll have 6 different wineries there paired with dinners. So the cool thing, again, about those events are that proceeds of all the ticket prices that are sold for those go back to that scholarship to help out future winemakers here in the state. So make sure to check out their website. It's www.texashillcountrywineries.org. O-R-G. You can find info about the organization, the board of directors, and things like that in their history. You'll also find some links to the listings of all the participating wineries and the interactive map that January mentioned, allowing you to find them all. Lastly, you can find info about all those great events. And best of all, you can go today. Don't wait and buy one of those incredible passports for Texas Wine Month. And then you can go explore many of the wine destinations, again, that you've heard about on this very podcast. Be watching for those wine trails on my website and on my social media. If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate and possibly review the show wherever you get the podcast. Getting those ratings and reviews really helps the show get seen by more people, and I definitely appreciate any feedback you want to give. I also invite you to become a patron of the show by following the link on my website. For a small amount every month, you can get access to bonus photos and videos of the various wine destinations I visit, and that helps support me as I take this show on the road out to even more great wine destinations all over Texas.
Well, subscribe to the podcast, follow my socials to be notified whenever the next episode is posted, and until next time, happy trails and bottoms up, y'all. Thanks for listening to Texas Under Vine. We strive to provide you with the best information about wine businesses all over Texas. Be sure to check out our website at texasundervine.com and follow us on our socials at texasundervine to stay up on all the upcoming episodes. Please email us with any suggestions or feedback. Also, contact us if you're interested in donating, sponsoring, or advertising on the podcast, just to help us cover our expenses and bring even more great info to you in future episodes. Above all, travel safely, and most especially, drink responsibly. Don't forget to also check out the Texas Wine Lover website and their phone app. If you want to plan a trip to the wine destination I talked about in this episode, the site for Texas Wine Lover and their phone app that you can download will really help you organize a trip so you can go see them. You can check out all of the goodness that I got to experience while I was there. But as you're planning your trip, while you're on their website or their app, you can also find out things like accommodations, restaurants, and even some fun events and things that are going on at the wineries, and maybe even find one that you want to experience as part of your wine trip that you never even expected. So check them out. Again, it's txwinelover.com.